بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أنا أشكركم جميعا بالتحية والتقدير.
At the outset, allow me to say that His Majesty, His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Crown Prince, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that it is an honor to me to participate at the Manama speech in its 11th edition in response to an honorable invitation from His Royal Highness Crown Prince of Bahrain, who is keen on achieving interaction between a group of experts, of thinkers and decision makers, because this would enrich dialogue. It would enrich the discussions that we have on achieving and responding to the aspirations of Arab peoples in terms of stability and well-being. This is what we have always been used to when dealing with Bahrain under the wisdom and the leadership of His Majesty King Mohammed bin Isa Al Khalifa, King of Bahrain. The Manama Dialogue has become one of the most important events organized at the regional level, focusing on security affairs regionally, focusing as well on all the factors impacting such developments. Its importance today is doubled in light of what our Arab region is going through. Speaking of challenges, speaking of crises, speaking of problems. In addition to that, this is the best place to discuss a lot of axes that impact directly the situation prevailing in countries of this region, most important of which the implication and repercussions of crises that our region is going through and the replications of that on national security. In addition to the impact of a security situation in the Middle East, I would like to highlight the developments in terms of security and strategy in the Arab world, in the Arab region, and also the challenges that we face in terms of terrorism and extremism, aiming at undermining the notion of modern states. Ladies and gentlemen, your friend countries, your brethren countries, and your esteemed organizations share Egypt's concerns when it comes to the threats to the concept of a citizenship state and the destruction of this concept in our region. This concept was developed over decades and decades in order to achieve a social, economic, and political regime that is governed by constitution and law, that governs relationships between peoples and their governments, which recognizes the legitimate rights of citizens and which imposes obligations of these citizens. And also, this responsibilizes governments and states towards their citizens at the regional level and at the international level equally. Militias and rogue groups that are armed have become in a contest that challenge the tools that the state uses to enforce the law. The idea of the rule of law in some of our countries is broken nowadays under the pressure from sectarian and communal strife. This is why we see groups of citizens, sects, and tribes that have the same ethnicity, defining themselves according to their narrow identity and fearing one another, instead of coexisting in the logic of one homeland that governs and respects the rights of its citizens, regardless of their differences, whether ethnic, religious, racial, or others. Some groups have found themselves a refuge in these groups. They have even nurtured these sectarian feelings in order to achieve their agendas and their ambitions in this region. These velleities impact negatively the notion of a state. These parties have relied on religious, sectarian, and social factions in different countries that they were capable of polarizing and mobilizing in order to implement their own agendas at the detriment of the notion of state in the Arab region. Unfortunately, this was practically translated into conflicts that tear apart at our social fabrics and national fabrics in our Arab countries. The nurturing of sectarian strife has become the fuel to this region's wars. It is a war of attrition that drains the resources of our peoples and countries, in addition to the damages that are incurred at the level of the country's esteem and identity. Ladies and gentlemen, Some people thought when they saw the Arab peoples moving, revendicating their rights, they thought that factions that use religion to serve their rights are actually candidates to lead the peoples of the region. They even thought that these currents are moderate, politically speaking, and that they are capable of embracing and encapsulating the ambitions of their peoples. They thought that they are capable of stopping terrorism. However, everyone quickly found out that these currents and that these parties that claimed to be religious do not understand the primordial principles of our uprising and of our revolutions. These currents and these parties tried to have the appanage of reshaping the political scene. They adopted mechanisms that are far from being moderate and that are far from being nationalistic in nature. The recent times have shown that these currents are in cooperation and in connivance with the most extremist powers in this region. They even tried to usurp powers eternally in order to support the countries that supported him back. The failure of the bet that all of these parties have placed on these currents have shown that these powers are not capable of achieving stability. On the contrary, they destabilized the region on a wide scope. We found out quickly that these parties are still betting on such currents and on such parties, and this is still a threat to our national Arab security. Ladies and gentlemen, the tools and instruments for us to preserve our national unity are not confined to military confrontations and security procedures and measures that are taken. We need a comprehensive approach that takes into consideration that economic and social factors are considered to be among the most important and essential factors to guarantee the stability and security of countries. This goes in tandem with and hand in hand with the rights of people and the respect of people's rights. This was unveiled by the uprising of the people in order to call for their rightful rights, for their legitimate rights, in order to achieve their ambitions. In this regard, I would like to reiterate that the political and social and economical deterioration impact the notion of the state in the mindset of the people, because sometimes it is a bit difficult to distinguish between the state and the government. Today, we are witnessing a very intricate and difficult situation at the regional level. National security at the Arab level is in danger. We need to preserve what we have left of countries and institutions. We need to restore the confidence of Arab citizens in the possibility of living in a state that is fully aware of their rights, that is fully capable of guaranteeing their rights. This will not be achieved if we suffice with fighting terrorism without looking for real political solutions that provide the necessary environment and the enabling environment for economic development, for social justice, and for economic growth. This is a huge task ahead that we need to do and that we need to undertake, all of us. We need to converge our efforts, and we need the participation of all stakeholders, especially those that are capable of impacting the course of events. Ladies and gentlemen, Egypt has never and will never spare any efforts to find political solutions for the crises in this region. The history bears witness to our efforts to help our Palestinian brethren to establish their independent state at the frontier of the 4th of June 1967 with Eastern Jerusalem as its capital. This would contribute to the eradication of one of the most important arguments used by terrorist groups in order to finance their groups and recruit new people and mobilize new youngsters. This would provide future generations with a better future. Egypt has also supported strongly the United Nations efforts in order to contain the Libyan crisis and the formation of a Libyan national unity government that is tasked with rebuilding Libyan institutions. We have striven for over a year on encouraging Libyan factions and forces to participate in power in a manner that does not undermine the principle of the devolution of power, and this was shown by the expression of the Libyan people's right in voting when they went to the ballots. Egypt would like to reiterate its intent on pursuing a political solution to the Syrian crisis in cooperation with regional and international powers. In addition to the pursuit of countering terrorism and focusing on restructuring and the reconstruction of Syria, this would allow for the return of refugees to their homeland and would encourage them to be there and to participate in the reconstruction of their country. The opposition forces in Syria have met, and we have supported their pursuit of finding a political situation or a political solution to find a term for the situation that is prevailing in Syria. In addition to that, the coalition met 160 people and focused primarily on a national project, a national charter project, through which they put forth their vision of a relationship between the state and citizens based on the principles of equality and citizenship, far away from sectarianism and communalism. Egypt played a great role in helping them achieve their goals without trying to exert any pressure or any type of custody on this coalition. In Yemen, Egypt did not show any reluctance in supporting the Yemeni people in their battle against extremism and terrorism. Egypt reiterates the necessity to find a peaceful solution that would guarantee stability and security for Yemen, that would guarantee the integrity of the Yemeni territory, and that would guarantee also the reconstruction process in order to provide stability and a better future and prosperity to the people of Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges that loom ahead in building our future necessitate the eradication of all the factors that have led to the eruption of this crisis. In Egypt, we are ready to deal with any international power that understands the importance of having stability in the Arab world and that truly believes in the necessity to not interfere in the internal affairs of Arab states. This is why, as Arab leaders, we have the duty to continue working on reinforcing the primacy of the state. And in this regard, I would like to reiterate that Egypt is willing and ready to have peer-to-peer relations based on mutual respect and reciprocal respect and esteem with any international power in order to re-push the economic, social, cultural, and political wheels in our countries, and that would allow our peoples to harness the resources of our region, and so that the Arab world and the Middle East would contribute positively in achieving stability worldwide and serving the better interests of humanity, just like we always have. I thank you for your attention, and may the peace and blessings of God be upon you.